What's up everybody, welcome to HDpiano. My name is Kale and in today's lesson we're going over This Love by Maroon 5. In this part 1 video, I'll be teaching you how to play the main riff of the song. Here's how that sounds. So there you have it, quite a bit of rhythm there, but no worries, we're going to break all of that down. Now before we dive into this lesson, I've got a question for everybody tuning in out there. Now This Love came out a while ago, so this can even be considered a throwback song at this point. And it's pretty nostalgic for me to teach this one because I was really young when this song came out. And I'm curious, how old were you guys when this song came out? And what do you remember about that time? Go ahead and comment below, I'd love to see what you guys have to say. Alright, so let's start by talking about our right hand part, because this is the most simple part. We're just playing eighth notes in the right hand. And if you don't know what those are, no worries, I'll break them down for you real quick. So our basic unit of measurement is the quarter note. And quarter notes get one hit per beat, so if you're counting your beats, like 1, 2, 3, 4, quarter notes would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pretty simple. Now eighth notes get 2 hits to a beat. So if you're counting your beats as 1, 2, 3, 4, eighth notes would sound like this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And when we do that, you start to hear the rhythm of this main riff part. So we're going to be playing eighth notes, and we're going to be counting these as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So we're adding an and in between each beat in order to signify that eighth note, which has 2 hits per beat. So our first chord is going to be a G major chord. We're going to have a B with our thumb in the right hand, a D with our pointer finger, and a G with our pinky. And we're just going to play that for a whole bar. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and just like that. And if you want to add a little extra flavor to it, go ahead and play the first one a little louder and the second one a little quieter, like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. So really stress the beats in each bar, because that's how they get this part to sound so good. And then after that, we're going to move to a C minor chord on the next bar. So we're going to keep our pinky rooted on G and move our thumb up to C and our middle finger to E flat. We're going to do the same concept, just a whole bar of eighth notes. So we have a G major, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we have a C minor, 1, 2, 3, 4. Then in our next bar, we're going to move up to an F minor 7. So we'll keep our thumb rooted on C, and then we're going to play an E flat with our pointer finger, an F with our middle finger, and an A flat with our ring finger. And same thing, we're just going to play some eighth notes. Just like that. And then our final chord in the main riff is going to be a B diminished chord. So we're going to keep our middle finger and our ring finger rooted on F and A flat. And then in the right hand, we'll have also a B with our thumb and a D with our pointer finger. And again, same idea, just eighth notes. So let's recap the 4 chords that we have in our right hand for the main riff before we jump into the left hand part. We start off with G major, so 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then C minor, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then F minor 7, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and finally B diminished, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and. Okay, so there's your right hand part. Now let's talk about the left hand part, because this takes the rhythm a step further. We're going to be using 16th note rhythms in our left hand. So if you remember, we talked about eighth notes getting 2 hits to a beat. 16th notes get 4 hits to a beat. So we're going to have to add a few more syllables to our counting. If we're counting eighth notes as 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and, 16th notes are counted like this. 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and. So we have our 1 ands and our 2 ands, but in between those we also add a E and an So we have 1 E and a. Those are our 4 16th notes. Now we don't have to count that way the whole time, that's a mouthful. We actually only need to count it on the parts that are using that rhythm. So starting off in our left hand part, we have a B octave. Now if your hand isn't big enough to play the octave, no worries, I would just recommend playing the lowest note here. But if you can reach the octave, do it, definitely. I highly recommend it because it'll make the left hand part sound way thicker. So we start with a B with our pinky and a B with our thumb, just on beat 1. So we have 1, 2, 3. We wait until beat 3, and then on the and of beat 3, we play this B octave again. So it'll sound like this. 1, 2, 3, and. 1, 2, 3, and. And then after that, on the E of beat 4, we're going to jump up to a D octave. So D with our pinky and D with our thumb. So that whole bar is going to sound like this, really slowly. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. So see how I jumped up to the D octave on the E of beat 4? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. Now that rhythm is what we're going to be using for our entire left-hand part in the main riff. So going on to the next bar, we're going to play a C octave on beat 1 to match up with our C minor chord, right? And we're going to do the same thing, so 1 and 2 and 3. And on the end of 3, we're going to go up to a G octave. So G with our pinky and G with our thumb. And on the E of 4, we're going to go down to an F sharp. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and, right? So all in all, so far in the left-hand part, we have 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1. So now at the top of the next bar, we move down to our F octave to match up with our F minor 7 chord in the right hand, right? 1 and 2 and 3 and. So on the end of 3, we're going to go and play our F octave again. And on the E of beat 4, we're going to move down to an E flat octave. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and. And then finally, we're going to move down to a D octave, and we're going to play that underneath our B diminished chord in the right hand. So on beat 1, we have our D octave. 1 and 2 and 3 and. On the end of 3, we're going to jump all the way down to an A flat octave. So we're here with our D octave. On the end of 3, we jump all the way down to A flat. So 3 and. And then on the E of beat 4, we jump up to a B flat octave. So 3 and 4 E and, right? And then after that, we end right back up at B, where our left-hand part started. So let's recap everything we have in the left-hand part really slowly together before we combine our hands. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1. So there you go, that's your left-hand part. Now let's try combining our hands. And you'll find that this may be a bit easier than it seems because the right hand, in playing these steady eighth notes, does a really good job of marking where the beats are at. So you can play those 16th notes relatively easily. They just fit right in between the eighth notes. Now let's go over it really slowly together and you'll see what I mean. So we start with our G major chord in the right hand, and in our left hand we have B octaves. Ready? 1 and 2 and 3 and go. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 E and 1. And there you go, you've learned the hardest part of the song, which is the main riff. Now for our next part, we're going to go on to the chorus of this song, so be sure to head over to HDpiano.com, home of the hybrid piano lesson, for part 2 of this lesson series. Please consider subscribing below, and also please consider following us on Twitter at HDpiano. You can tweet your song requests to us using the hashtag HDrequests. Also, please consider liking us on Facebook, where we're posting a bunch of great piano content. Thanks for following along with this HDpiano hybrid piano lesson. We'll see you guys over at HDpiano.com for part 2.